When the world goes quiet, some voices still remain. Not every soul finds peace when the clock strikes 12. There are stories hidden in the shadows, whispers drifting between the living and the forgotten. Some stories linger, some souls don't leave. Welcome to Stillness After Midnight, where every silence tells a story. If you're drawn to the mysteries that stir after dark, the voices that echo when the world sleeps, subscribe now and join us as we listen to the souls who still have something to say, because in the stillness, the truth finally speaks. I heard my own death. It didn't sound like thunder, or screaming, or any grand final symphony like the movies promise. It was still, a quiet so dense it pressed into me from every side. The hum of nothing, then the sting of light. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I thought when they flipped the switch, that would be it. A sharp burst, a final breath, the blank screen, curtains, but the curtains never came. I blinked, even though I had no eyes. And there I was, floating above my own body, slumped in a chair stained with the weight of 100 sins. I think they called me John Doe when they strapped me in. I never gave them a real name. I didn't have one. Or maybe I did. Once. Maybe someone whispered it to me when I was still pink and soft and unaware that I'd become a monster. But that name is gone now. All I had in the end was silence. A leather strap. A room filled with angry men behind glass. And the dull click of justice being carried out. You'd think there'd be rage, fire, something, but all I felt was cold. Not the kind of cold that makes your fingers numb. No, a deep, existential cold. The kind that seeps under your skin and whispers to you that maybe, just maybe, you never existed at all. They say when you die, your life flashes before your eyes. That's not true. What you see is everyone else's pain, all at once. I saw the mother in Missouri who never forgave herself for letting her daughter walk alone that night. I saw the boy who grew into a man with a hole in his heart because his brother never came home from the gas station. I saw the detective who quit the force after staring too long at the photographs of what I did. They say I killed 17, but they never found all the bones, and they never counted the ones still walking, hollowed out. And now, here I am. Whatever here means, I drift. There is no sky, no floor, just a black so endless. I can feel it pulsing behind what used to be my eyes. The darkness isn't empty, though. It watches me, like it's waiting for something. And then, a voice, not outside me, inside, no words, just a feeling. Remember, but I don't want to remember, because the moment I do, the nightmare begins again. The first memory isn't a murder, it's the cell. 6 by 8 feet of sweat, rot, and whispers. I spent years in that concrete coffin, pretending not to care, carving lies into my own skin. The guards called me it. Other inmates avoided me. Some tried to become me. I think that scared me more. They told stories about how I laughed when I was arrested, about the way I left marks on victims that spelled symbols no one understood. They called me a demon, a ghost, a copycat with no origin. But I never told them the truth, because I didn't know it myself. There was a name they kept bringing up during the trial. Some psychiatrist from Wisconsin said I had dissociative identity disorder. Another said I was a product of childhood trauma. One of them, a soft-eyed woman with trembling hands, just stared at me like I was something ancient, something unkillable. "Do you remember your first?" she asked once. I didn't answer her, because I couldn't, because that's the curse of becoming what I became. Your memories bleed like ink in water, always spreading, always darkening, never solid enough to hold. The void pulls me again. It doesn't speak, but it leads. I follow, through the nothing, until the corridor appears, a long, narrow hallway, floating in midair, lined with doors that hum like old refrigerators. Each one whispers. Each one contains a memory I've buried, a truth I've denied, a person I've hurt. I don't want to open them, but I'm not in control anymore. The first door swings wide on its own. Inside, blood, a motel bathroom, rusted mirror. My reflection smeared with something red and unholy. A girl, maybe 20, lies curled in the tub like a broken marionette. Her eyes are still open, and I can't look away. I try to scream, but I have no throat. I want to forget, again, but the void won't let me. Remember? I don't know what I was looking for when I walked across the country. Some killers hunt because it thrills them, others because they want control. I think I just wanted to exist, to feel something. Each murder was a fingerprint, proof I'd been there, that I was real. But even then, I was slipping. I had no documents, no family, no photographs. I burned everything that could tie me to anyone. When the FBI asked for childhood photos, there were none. When they searched for birth records, the system coughed back. Unidentified, it was like I had been born from shadows, or worse, made by them. The darkness presses in again. The corridor vanishes. And now I float above the execution room once more. I watch them carry my body out in a black bag. I hear the warden mutter, "Good riddance." And yet, I linger, because this isn't the end. It's the beginning. The voice returns, stronger now. Each door will open. Each truth will be seen. You will know why you were born without a name. I don't want to know, because I already suspect the truth, that I was never made evil. I was shaped into it, and the hands that shaped me might have worn a wedding ring, or a badge, or a nurse's glove. But that's a story for the next door, and the next scream, until I remember everything, until I face the thing behind the final door, the name I was never given, the reason I was born in silence, and the final truth, that I wasn't always a killer, but I was always broken. There are no clocks here, no ticking, no sunrise, no concept of before or after, only the corridor and the eyes. I don't know how long I've been walking. Maybe hours, maybe centuries. Time here doesn't flow. It coils. It folds in on itself like a dying spider. And somewhere inside that spiral, I am. The floor is bone white. It pulses beneath me like flesh. The walls shift. At first solid, then porous, then translucent like gauze soaked in breath. And covering every inch of them are eyes. Not eyes like yours. They're open, wide, and watching. No pupils. Just a glassy, milky swirl, like cataracts stretched across eternity. Some blink, others twitch, but none look away. They stare at me, not past me, not through me, at me, like they know. The first time I heard the whisper, I thought it was coming from behind me, but there is no behind here. When I turn around, the corridor just bends, like it's wrapping around me, folding into my skin. The whisper says, "How many?" My breath catches, though I don't really breathe anymore. I know what it means. I know what it's asking. How many lives did I take? I try to answer, but the truth is, I don't know. Not really. 17, 18, that's what the prosecutors claimed, but they never found the boy in Kansas, or the couple in the woods near Flagstaff, or the one I buried beneath the fruit stand off Highway 99. Sometimes I wonder, was I counting, or was I trying to lose count? As I walk, the corridor changes. It becomes narrower, closer. The walls press in, like they want to touch me. The eyes become more frantic. Some leak a dark, tar-like fluid. Others twitch rapidly, as if trying to scream without a mouth. Then, ahead of me, a door. Not like the last. This one is metallic, rusted, covered in scratches. It smells like old sweat and panic. My legs move before I can resist. I try to stop, but this place is not governed by my will. The door swings open, and I see myself, maybe 19, maybe 20, sitting in the back of a stolen car, clutching a radio I'd ripped from a gas station counter. I recognize the place. Mississippi, summer, hotter than hell. I was sleeping in the car, surviving off gas station sandwiches and roadkill. I hadn't killed yet. Not exactly, but I'd started hunting. There was a girl. I don't remember her name. Maybe I never asked. She worked at the diner, always smiled too wide. I watched her for days, not because I wanted her, but because I didn't understand her. How could someone live in a place like that and still laugh? One night, I followed her home, not to hurt her, just to see. She lived in a trailer behind a church. I stood outside her window and watched her brush her hair, light a candle, fall asleep with a book across her chest. She never knew I was there. I told myself that made it okay, that it wasn't a crime if there was no contact. But now, floating here, seeing it from above, I know better. The soul begins dying long before the first body drops. Sometimes it starts with a thought, sometimes with a stare. Mine started with silence. The door slams shut. The corridor jolts, like a train coming off its track. The eyes begin to murmur, not words, just sounds. Pain, judgment, memory, regret, and underneath it all, something deeper. Do you remember your mother? The voice comes again, inside me, familiar, yet impossible to place. I freeze. I haven't thought of her in decades, maybe more. A fragment surfaces, not a face, but a sound, a lullaby, out of tune, hummed in the dark, and blood. So much blood on her hands as she wrapped me in a towel. She told me I was born in winter. She told me never to speak to strangers. She told me that I wasn't supposed to exist. And one day, she disappeared. Another door. This one is different. Smaller. Wooden. Cracked like dry lips. It smells like cigarette ash and baby powder. When it opens, I fall inside. A kitchen, dim, claustrophobic. A woman stands at the stove. She's thin, unkempt. Her hands shake as she holds a spoon. There's a bruise under one eye. A cigarette burns down to the filter between her fingers. She's singing that same lullaby. And in the corner, a child, me, tiny, silent, staring. She turns and screams at me, not words, just rage. Throws the spoon. It hits the wall beside my head. I don't flinch. I never did. The vision blurs. Colors stretch like oil on water. And then, gone. I'm back in the corridor, shaking. If I had a body, I'd vomit. If I had tears, they'd fall. But I'm just a soul now, and souls don't get to feel clean. I understand now. This corridor isn't punishment. It's memory. It's truth. Each door is a piece of me, a piece I left behind, a clue to the question that has haunted me since the day they dragged me from that alley with blood under my nails. Why? Why did I become this? Why couldn't I stop? Why didn't anyone notice before it was too late? The eyes begin blinking faster now. I hear them chanting, not aloud, but inside my skull. A name, one I don't recognize. It repeats, louder, more frantic. Elijah, Elijah, Elijah. Was that my name or someone else's? The corridor curves sharply, unnaturally, and at the end, another door waits. This one is wrapped in chains, heavy, ancient, the kind of chains that don't break. They bind. I don't want to open it, but I know I will, because that's what this place is, a truth machine. And once you enter, you don't get to lie anymore. I step forward, the chains rattle, and the eyes, every single one, close. The chains fall away like smoke. No clank, no resistance, just surrender. The door opens, and the smell hits me first. Not rot, not blood, but something far worse. Regret. I step inside, not walk, drift. I have no feet now, just presence. The room is small, wallpaper peeling, the buzz of a fly somewhere near the ceiling, the kind of place that exists between poverty and forgetting. And in the center, a motel bed, sheets half pulled. A girl, 19, maybe 20, lies still, not arranged, just stopped, hair tangled, fingernails cracked, one eye open, the other half closed, a bruise on her throat, dried blood beneath her nose. No one will find her for days. I know this place. I know this moment, because this was the first time I killed. Her name was Crystal. At least, that's what she told me. We met at a gas station in Texas. She asked if I had a cigarette. I didn't, but I lied and said I did. She laughed, said she liked liars. That night, we shared a room. Not out of romance, just necessity. She was running from someone, a man, maybe, or herself. She didn't say. I was just drifting, living off stolen money, odd jobs, and the illusion of anonymity. We talked until 3 a.m. about nothing, about everything, about where souls go when they don't belong anywhere. And for a moment, I didn't feel like a ghost. But morning came, and something in me cracked. Not a thought, not a plan, just a silence, so loud it felt like it needed to be answered. She was still sleeping when I wrapped my hands around her throat. She opened one eye, not in fear, in confusion, like she recognized me, like she'd seen this before, like she knew this was always going to happen. I tightened. She kicked once, then twice, then stopped. And when it was over, I cried, not for her, for me, because I thought it would change something inside me. But it didn't. It didn't make me feel real. It didn't make me feel anything. Just quiet. And I like the quiet. The memory begins to warp. Colors stretch. Sound bends. The bed vanishes. Now I'm standing in the shower, water running cold, her blood still on my knuckles. I stare at my hands. They tremble, not from guilt, but from hunger. Something inside me had awakened, and it wasn't satisfied. Back in the corridor, the door slammed shut behind me. No chains now, no locks, just eyes. They've reopened, but something's changed. They don't just watch, they weep. Thick black tears ooze from them, dripping down the walls like oil. The corridor pulses with a heartbeat that isn't mine. The lights dim, or maybe there were never lights at all. And in the distance, another voice, male, hoarse, familiar. Do you remember what you did next? I do. I hitchhiked west. I left her body in the room. Didn't even wipe my prints. Didn't have to. No one knew my name. No one would come looking for her, or for me. She was just another girl on the edge of the map. And I was already erasing myself. People think serial killers start with some grand design, but that's a lie. The first time is always an accident, a moment where something slips, a boundary, a rule, a line in the sand, and then it's gone forever. And after that, you chase that feeling. Not the blood, not the kill, the silence that follows. In Colorado, I killed a man who picked me up on the interstate, said I reminded him of his son. I smiled, said thank you, and waited until he fell asleep behind the wheel. Then I jerked the steering. We crashed. He died. I walked away with a fractured rib and $57. No one even looked for him. Somewhere, there's a wife who still checks her porch for his silhouette. The corridor shifts again. A new door forms. This one is shaped like a stop sign. Crimson, flashing. I try to walk past it, but the floor beneath me gives way, and I fall, spinning through memory. Now I'm 12, in a basement. It's cold, wet, moldy. A man sits across from me, thin, face like melted wax, eyes too kind for what he does. He calls me son, even though he isn't my father. He lights candles, tells me to be still. He says the world outside is cruel, that I was born broken, and broken things need rituals. He touches my face. He calls it cleansing. He says pain is holy, and when I cry, he tells me not to, because no one cries for ghosts. I don't remember leaving that place, but I remember what I took with me. Silence. I didn't speak for 2 years after that. When someone asked my name, I lied. Not because I was hiding, but because I didn't know anymore. Each lie felt more real than the truth, until I forgot which was which. Back in the corridor, my form trembles. I feel thinner, like every memory takes a piece of me. Maybe that's the price of truth. Maybe that's why some souls fade. They remember too much. Ahead, the next door waits. Not locked, but worse, it's made of mirrors. Dozens, hundreds, each one showing a different version of me. Some with blood on their hands, some with empty eyes, some smiling, some crying, all of them watching me, waiting. And one of them, just one, whispers, "This wasn't always your fate." But that's a lie, isn't it? Because fate doesn't write itself. We carve it, one choice at a time. And somewhere, long ago, I carved a path I can no longer walk back from. She wore red the first time I saw her. Not bright red, not seductive, but a deep, earthy crimson, like dried wine spilled on silk, like blood after it's had time to dry. She stood at the edge of a highway gas station in Nevada, alone, arms crossed, eyes hidden behind thick, black sunglasses. And yet, I felt them, staring straight through me. I should have walked away, but something pulled me toward her. Not lust, not pity, something older. Recognition. Back in the corridor, the mirrors shatter behind me, one by one. With every step forward, they burst, like glass lungs exhaling memory. And in the distance, another door forms. Not a rectangle like the others. This one is arched, elegant, carved like cathedral wood. When it opens, I am no longer in the corridor. I'm there again. That gas station, sun bleeding into the desert sky, flies buzzing against the windows. And her, leaning on a payphone that doesn't work, flicking a coin between her fingers. I ask her if she needs help. She smiles, like she already knows me. Her voice was rough, husky, smoked out. "You passing through?" I nodded. She didn't ask my name, didn't care. She just said, "Drive me." No explanation, no story. And for some reason, I said yes. We didn't speak for the first 30 miles. She lit a cigarette, rolled down the window, stared at the nothing beyond the desert. Then she said, "You smell like forgetting." I asked her what that meant. She didn't answer, just smiled again and said, "Don't worry. I do too." She gave no name, so I didn't either. For 2 nights, we drifted through nowhere towns, broken motels, late-night diners with flickering lights. We were shadows eating eggs and drinking coffee. Strangers who didn't need lies because we both knew the truth was worse. She never touched me, never asked, but there was something in her gaze, not seduction, not fear, but understanding, like she saw what I was and chose not to flinch. The second night, we found a place outside Barstow, motel with buzzing neon and roaches the size of pennies. I was going to sleep in the car, but she opened the door and said, "Come in, just don't lie." We sat on the bed, lights off, only moonlight coming through the curtains. She spoke first. "What's the worst thing you've done?" I didn't answer, but she didn't press. She just said, "Most men lie to cover their guilt. You lie to hide your emptiness." I remember my chest tightening, like she'd reached into me with a cold hand and squeezed the place where a heart should have been. Later, I asked, "Why are you running?" She looked at me like she'd been waiting for the question. Then she whispered, "I didn't kill him. I just didn't stop him from dying." I didn't ask more. I understood. There are sins of action and sins of silence. Some of us bury bodies, others just watch them drown. Both are murderers in the end. Before dawn, she stood by the window. The red dress swayed slightly in the wind. She looked fragile and ancient, like a ghost who had already died and was just reliving her last night on earth. Then she turned and said, "When you kill someone, don't forget their face. The day you forget, that's the day you stop being human." I didn't tell her I'd already forgotten 5, maybe more. In the morning, she was gone. No note, no trace. Nothing in the passenger seat but the faint smell of tobacco and a single red thread caught in the car door. I searched the town, asked the motel clerk. No one remembered her. It was like she had never existed. Back in the corridor now, that thread appears in front of me, floating in the dark. When I touch it, I'm pulled into another scene. Not a motel this time, a morgue, cold, metallic, too white to be real. On a table, a body covered by a sheet. I lift it, and there she is, the woman in red, hair matted, lips pale, sunglasses gone, eyes wide open, still staring at me. I step back. Whispers rise like steam. "You let her die. You took the silence and left her to drown in it. She gave you a choice. I don't know how she died, but I feel it in my core. I could have stopped it. I could have stayed, could have asked, could have cared, but I didn't, because she looked into me and didn't run, and that terrified me more than anything. Because she saw what I was becoming and didn't flinch. Maybe I left her before she could pull me back. Or maybe I left before I had to admit I wanted to be saved. The morgue dissolves. I'm back in the corridor, but something is different. There are no eyes now, only mirrors, and in every reflection, her face, her voice. You're not beyond redemption, but you have to want it. I want to scream, but I can't, because something inside me still believes her. And that's more painful than any punishment this place can offer, because if I could have been saved, then every death afterward is my choice, not my fate. The corridor splits now, 2 paths, one wrapped in white light, the other cloaked in shadow. A voice inside me whispers, "Choose," but I don't move. I kneel. For the first time in eternity, I kneel not to beg, but to remember. Because before I step forward, I need to see her face one last time. The only person who looked at me without fear, the only one who didn't try to name me, because she already knew. There are some souls born from fire and some forged in ash. The corridor is gone. I didn't choose a path, but something chose for me. Now, I stand in a town where everything looks wrong. The sky is gray, but not like a cloudy day. More like a canvas no one finished painting. The streets are lined with buildings that feel familiar, but none have signs, no names, no numbers. There are houses, yes, but every window is covered. Every door is locked. No birds, no music, no wind, just stillness. And somewhere beneath it all, the low hum of forgotten things. I begin walking. Each step sounds too loud. The asphalt isn't warm. It isn't cold. It just exists. Like everything here, suspended, waiting, without identity. Then I notice something stranger. The people. They walk the streets like shadows in human form. Not quite real, not quite gone. Their faces went blurred, as if smeared by a careless painter. They don't speak. They don't nod. They don't see me. Or worse, maybe they do, and simply don't care. I pass a child sitting on the curb, or what looks like a child. Its limbs are too long, its skin too pale. It stares at the ground, muttering something over and over. Don't name the dead. Don't name the dead. Don't name the dead. I kneel. Do you know where I am? It doesn't look up. Do you know who I am? Still nothing. Only the whisper, now with a second voice, layered beneath. They're listening. I move on. At the end of the road, I find a house that doesn't match the rest. Wooden porch, rusted swing, door cracked open like a mouth about to speak. I enter, and the moment I cross the threshold, I'm somewhere else. It's a kitchen, old, damp, walls yellowed by grease and time, a flickering bulb overhead, the smell of soup, thin, cheap, overboiled. At the table, a boy, maybe 6, maybe 8, barefoot, hollow eyes, hands covered in crayon marks. And across from him, a woman, thin, gray hair tied in a bun, wearing a hospital gown like a house dress. She stirs the soup, murmurs, "Eat it while it's hot, before they take it away." She doesn't look at the boy, doesn't need to, because I know this moment, not from memory, from inside. That boy is me. I want to scream, but I don't have lungs. I want to run, but my feet are rooted in shadow. So I watch. The boy eats quietly. His hand trembles. There are bruises along his wrist. His knuckles look chewed. He doesn't speak, doesn't cry. The woman finally turns to him, says, "If anyone asks, your name is Adam. Got it? Adam." He nods. She leans closer. "And you were never here." The room twists, like pulled taffy. Suddenly I'm in a bedroom, small, crib in the corner, a broken nightlight, a teddy bear with one eye, and someone's pounding at the door. Not knocking, pounding. The boy hides under the bed. The woman screams something, words I can't make out. Then silence. And then a bang. Gunshot? No, something heavier, like a metal pipe hitting bone. The boy sobs. Not loud, but enough. Just enough. The door bursts open, and a man enters. His face, a smear of ink. No features. But I feel his presence like smoke in my throat. He grabs the boy, lifts him by the arm, yells, but his mouth doesn't move. Only his hands. Only the belt he unloops. The boy doesn't cry this time, just stares, like he's already gone. The vision shatters. I stumble backward. I'm back in the nameless town. But now, it's changed. The people no longer walk. They stand, still, watching me. Their faces are still blurred, but I see something in their mouths. They're all whispering the same thing. You had no name because they never gave you one. You had no home because they kept moving you. You had no self because they made you forget. I fall to my knees. The child from earlier reappears, now closer, still muttering, "Don't name the dead." But then he looks up, and for the first time, I see a clear face. It's mine, younger, unscarred, innocent, and terrified. He says, "They gave you numbers, not names. They told you stories instead of truth. They fed you lies instead of food." I whisper back, "Who were they?" He shakes his head. "No one knows their names. That's how they stay safe." And then he vanishes. I rise all around me. The town begins to collapse. Not like an explosion, but like a memory being erased. Buildings fade, people blur into vapor, the sky peels away, and I'm left standing in an empty lot where a house once stood. Only one thing remains, a sign hanging from a single nail, words scrawled in blood-colored ink. "This is not where you were born. This is where you were buried." The wind returns, for the first time in what feels like forever. It carries the smell of burned wood, rusted iron, and something deeper, shame. I hear a voice, not mine, not a memory, but something ancient. It says, "The truth is not a place, it is a wound, and you are still bleeding." In the distance, a bell rings, low, hollow, like a funeral toll for someone no one remembered to mourn. And then, the corridor returns. But now it's different. No longer a prison. Now it feels like a spine, a backbone of buried memory, rising from the depths. And ahead, the next door. It bears a symbol, a red thread, curled into a spiral. And I know, she is waiting on the other side. Not the woman in red, someone older, someone worse. The one who taught me silence. I remember the motel, not the address, not the name on the neon sign that blinked like a dying star, but the carpet, that hideous maroon carpet with cigarette burns and dark stains that smelled like moldy fear. There, in that room, number 9, I think, I did something again. Something familiar, something monstrous. But this time, I stayed. I didn't flee to the next state, didn't toss the clothes, didn't burn the ID. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the mirror bolted to the wall. And for the first time, I asked myself, "Who the hell are you?" No answer came, just my own reflection, hollow, greasy hair, dead eyes, a man who didn't exist in any government file, no social security number, no medical records, just a rumor that walked, breathed, and killed. The motel room was silent, but inside me, there was a noise, like glass cracking under pressure. I reached for the remote, turned on the TV. News, always a face, a photo, a candlelight vigil. They said a body had been found behind a gas station in Little Rock. A woman, early 30s, blonde, single mother, worked nights, went missing 3 days ago. They showed her face. I knew that face, but I didn't kill her. At least, I don't remember doing it. That's when the real horror began. Not the blood, not the screams, the forgetting. You think the worst thing a monster can do is remember the pain it caused. But that's a lie. The real curse is when the monster forgets and only finds out through the mouths of others. I tried to trace back. When did I last feel conscious? Had I blacked out again? Had the thing inside me, whatever it was, taken over? I opened the motel drawer, found a half-used notepad and pen. I started writing what I could remember. Names, dates, places. But the ink didn't match the weight of what I'd done. It felt like trying to bottle screams with paper. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. My hand froze. Not loud, just persistent. 3 slow knocks. I stood. Another knock. I opened the door. There was no one. Just the hallway light flickering, and something taped to the door. A Polaroid, a photograph of me, asleep, in that very room, with blood on my shirt, and a message written in black marker across the photo. Do you remember her name? I dropped it, my breath locked in my throat. I scanned the hallway. No shadows, no footfalls. But the fear had shape now. A face without features. Someone watching me from inside my own past. I slammed the door and locked it, then tore the room apart looking for cameras, bugs, anything. Nothing. Just stained wallpaper and cheap furniture. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, counting breaths, listening to the motel creak. In the silence, I started hearing them, in whispers, faint, like insects crawling in my ear. Names, voices, a girl, crying, a man, begging, a woman, screaming, each one fading into static before I could hold on to it. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was madness. Maybe they were the souls I'd taken, bleeding into my reality. Or maybe, just maybe, I was finally waking up, because after that night, I started seeing the same figure everywhere I went. A woman, dressed in black, sometimes at a distance, sometimes in reflections, never speaking, always watching, in a supermarket. I saw her in the glass of the freezer aisle, at a rest stop. She stood under the streetlight, not moving. Once, she appeared in my motel room mirror and didn't vanish when I turned around. She wasn't police. She wasn't alive. She was following me. A memory, a ghost, or something worse, consequence made flesh. I started asking myself questions I hadn't dared ask before. Why didn't I remember my first kill? Why did I have no family? Why did no one ever report me missing? And more terrifying than anything else, what if I never had a life to begin with? What if I was created by death, a patchwork of rage and trauma, walking in a borrowed body, not a man, not even a human, just darkness in motion? I began tracing old paths, places I'd been, towns I remembered by smell and sound. I stopped killing, not because I felt mercy, but because I feared I wasn't the one doing it anymore. I had to know, had to uncover the seams of this thing I called a life. In one of those towns, Dustin, Alabama, I walked into a diner, a quiet place, late at night. A waitress with tired eyes served me coffee. She stared at me a moment too long, then said, "You look like someone I knew." My heart went cold. I asked her who. She said, "My brother, he went missing 12 years ago." I asked her his name. She said, "Tommy Ray Carter." That name meant nothing to me, but when I went to the bathroom and looked at my reflection, I knew, somehow, in some way I couldn't explain, I was wearing his face. I stared into the bathroom mirror of that dusty Alabama diner, and for the first time in my haunted existence, I saw a stranger looking back. It wasn't the face I remembered from motel reflections, gas station windows, or security cameras I'd once ducked beneath. This one was younger, rounder jawline, light freckles, slight cleft in the chin. Tommy Ray Carter. I didn't know the man, but his face now lived on mine. And the horror wasn't that I had taken it. The horror was, I didn't know when. I staggered out of the restroom like a drunk man waking from a decade-long blackout. The waitress, his sister, was gone. So was the coffee. So was the booth. Had she ever been there? Had I imagined the whole thing? I checked the receipt. There was no name, no timestamp, just a blank slip of thermal paper and a single black dot burned into the corner, like an eye. The world began to feel bendable, not false, but stitched, like patches of dream and nightmare held together by a thread of guilt. I stepped outside into the parking lot. The air was thick, too thick for midnight, and there she was again, the woman in black. She stood beneath a flickering sign, her veil covering her face. For the first time, she lifted a hand. She pointed, not at me, but at my shadow. I turned to look. My shadow did not match me. It was taller, broader, the arms too long, the head cocked unnaturally, and it moved. A split second after I did, I drove, fast, reckless, with that feeling in my gut that time wasn't linear anymore, that I wasn't fleeing across miles, but across memories. But whose memories? I stopped in an abandoned field hours later, got out, stumbled into the dry grass, and screamed. For the first time since I'd begun this descent into the afterlife, I screamed. Not from pain, not from fear, but from the weight of too many borrowed lives caving in at once. And the wind carried that scream back to me. It echoed in a dozen different voices. Men, women, children, all screaming with me, all inside me. That night, I dreamed, if you can call it that. I stood in a room filled with hundreds of faces. None of them had bodies, just floating masks. Some smiling, some bleeding, some blank. They circled me like a slow carousel. And one by one, they whispered, I was you. You wore me. You broke me. I fell to my knees in that dream room, sobbing. One face came closer than the rest. It was a boy, maybe 12. And he said, you never had a name. You stole ours. I woke up with blood on my hands, fresh, wet, sticky, but there was no one around me. No corpse, no knife, just that field, just the sky, and in the distance, the sound of bells, not church bells, something older, more primal. They rang not for the dead, but for the forgotten. By sunrise, I understood something. I was not a serial killer in the traditional sense. I wasn't a man with a past and a twisted psychology, not a product of trauma, war, or neglect. I was a vessel, a carrier of some ancient, cold force, one that slid between skins, one that left behind nothing but broken faces and confused headlines. And now, that force was beginning to remember itself. I drove west, desperate to outrun what couldn't be outrun, but every town I passed through, I saw posters, wanted signs, missing persons, sketches, names, police files. And each time, the eyes on the page seemed to follow me. And each time, I felt my own face shift, slightly, as if responding to the guilt coded in paper and ink. I began keeping track of the changes, my hairline, my teeth, the creases around my eyes, like clay softening in heat. I realized I had no fingerprints, no consistent reflection, no single heartbeat. One day, in a public restroom, I pressed my hands to the mirror and begged, show me the real one. The mirror trembled, fogged, and revealed not my face, but 100 faces layered on top of each other, flickering, morphing, merging, all screaming. And in that screaming chorus, one word kept echoing louder than the rest, nameless. Back in my motel that night, I found something beneath the mattress, a box, old, molded at the corners. Inside Polaroids, dozens of them, each with a different face, each labeled with a name, Tommy, Lydia, Jordan, Francis, and beneath each photo, in smeared ink, I lived here. I died here. You wore me next. I collapsed. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just taken lives. I had worn them, like costumes, like cloaks, and I never asked permission. Now, as a soul floating beyond death's grasp, I understand what I am. I am not one killer. I am the collection, the residue, the echo left behind after each murder. A parasite born not in the act, but in the forgetting. And worst of all, I'm starting to remember names that never belonged to me. I found her name written on the back of a napkin, scrawled in red ink, trembling, like a hand fighting memory. Delilah M. Voss, do not return. I didn't remember writing it, but the paper was in my coat pocket, and the ink smelled faintly of smoke. The name clawed at the back of my skull, like a secret refusing silence. And that night, for the first time in the gray corridors of my unending purgatory, I saw her again, Delilah. She stood at the edge of a cornfield. The sky behind her was burning, but the flames made no sound. Her eyes were open too wide, not in fear, in knowing. I tried to call her name, but my tongue turned to ash. The wind passed through me, and I realized I was the fire. There are moments after death when the soul becomes a camera, trapped inside a photograph it didn't pose for. This was one of those moments. I watched myself, my former self, whoever he was, standing barefoot in the kitchen of a rotting farmhouse. Delilah was tied to a chair, not crying, not pleading, just staring at me, like she already knew she wasn't going to survive, and didn't care, like she had met killers before, but none that forgot her after. My hands in that memory were shaking. A gasoline canister in one, a cigarette in the other. She said just one thing before I dropped the flame. You'll forget me, but I'll burn longer than your name ever will. Then everything bloomed orange. I woke in a motel bathtub, my mouth filled with dirt, not metaphorically, real dirt, black soil, wet, worms writhing between my teeth. I screamed and spat and clawed my way out. The mirror was cracked. The word Delilah was etched into it, over and over again, hundreds of times, each letter carved with something sharp and cruel. I drove for days, no sleep, no music, just the name in my head, thudding like a second heartbeat. Delilah, Delilah, Delilah. And the memories began to leak, not all at once, just flickers. A field of sunflowers, her laughing at a song I can't remember, the smell of cinnamon, a scar on her shoulder shaped like a crescent moon. I remembered holding her. I remembered loving her, which made it worse, so much worse. Because now I knew I didn't kill a stranger. I killed someone who once taught me to be human. And then the guilt spoke, not in words, but in places. I began to arrive at towns that didn't exist on the map, shacks that remembered screams, barns that pulsed with heat even though they hadn't been lit in decades. Each location whispered a version of her death. In one, she was hanged. In another, drowned. In another, buried alive beneath piano keys. Each time, it was me who did it. Each time, it was her who watched me do it, lovingly, as if forgiving me was the price of release. But forgiveness never came. I met her soul on the seventh night. She stepped out of the fire like a queen, barefoot and burning. Her hair was made of smoke. Her voice was made of silence. And she said, "You wore my skin for a while. You tried to forget it. Now wear my scream." She reached into my chest and pulled out something glowing. It wasn't a heart. It was a mirror. And in its reflection, I saw 1,000 Delilahs, each one dying differently, each one staring at me like a god who had failed his own worshippers. She crushed the mirror, and when I fell to my knees, sobbing, she did not comfort me. She simply turned and said, "Now you're starting to remember who you were before the killing started." What does that mean? Who was I before the faces, before the burning, before the cycle? A child, a monster, a mirror without an image? I don't know yet, but I feel something moving inside me. Not hope, something colder. The beginning, the root, the seed of the first murder. and the terrifying truth that maybe Delilah was not my first. Maybe she was the last person who could have saved me, and I burned her for it. The floor is white, always white, not the comforting white of hospitals or empty sheets, but the kind of sterile, endless white that makes shadows disappear, a white that denies the concept of time. This is where I wake up now. Every time, no door, no windows, just four smooth walls and a ceiling that curves like a skull. But the worst part isn't being trapped, it's being watched. There's a chair in the center, wooden, old, and every time I sit in it, the room begins to play. Not like a movie, not like memory, it plays me. The first time I saw a boy, barefoot, maybe 6, digging something behind a garage. No one else was there, no parents, no voices, just wind and dirt. He pulled out a cat, dead, wrapped in cloth like a tiny corpse from a forgotten religion. He stared at it, then smiled. That boy was me. The second time, I saw myself older, 14. I was standing at the back of a gas station, holding a box cutter. The clerk was crying. I was not. There was no robbery, no motive, just the motion of cutting. That boy was also me. Each time I sit in the chair, the room plays a new act, another version of the person I never truly met while I was alive, myself. There was the neighbor's dog, the chemistry teacher who vanished, the fire in the mobile home, the girl with no teeth, and the stolen crucifix I buried in a park I've never visited. Each sin stripped of disguise, no music, no drama, just facts and the cold, numbing truth. I was always this way, even before Delilah, before names and knives and rituals. There was never a clean version of me, just a quieter one. I screamed at the ceiling, begged it to stop, but the room doesn't speak. It only shows. And what it shows is this: evil isn't loud. It doesn't cackle or twirl a mustache. It doesn't wear a costume. It whispers and waits and becomes part of your spine. One day, I woke to find a mirror in the room, not a modern one, a Baroque thing, heavy, old, shaped like a wound in the wall. I looked in, and this time, there was no version of me, just a door behind me. But when I turned around, the room was still whole, no exit. I looked back into the mirror. The door was still there, slightly ajar, a pale light glowing beyond it. Was it offering escape or just another trap? I made a choice. I walked into the mirror, and the white room shattered. Now I am somewhere else. The air is colder, smells of rust and old paper. I walked down a hallway made of filing cabinets, thousands of them, stacked higher than any building. Each one has a name. Names I don't know, names I may have killed, names that don't belong to me, and yet, somehow, do. I reach one labeled Project Hollow Echo, Case File 0Y011. Inside, there's a folder. Inside the folder, a photo of me as a child, smiling, holding a burned doll. Behind me, a woman, not Delilah, older, pale, with eyes like chipped glass. The note beneath says, Subject 0, trained to sever empathy, memory suppression successful, project terminated. My knees buckle. I scream, but no sound comes. Was I born a monster or made? Did someone engineer my emptiness? What is Project Hollow Echo? I begin to tear through the cabinets. One by one, each folder is worse than the last. I see other children, rooms like mine, experiments, names I don't remember, but faces that haunt my mind like scars I was taught to ignore. And then I find it, a map, drawn in blood and biro ink. It points to a facility, abandoned, underground, forgotten, somewhere in Kansas. And next to it, a final note. If he ever starts remembering, burn it all, but it's too late. I've remembered. And now, I'm walking toward the ashes of my own origin, not to escape it, but to confront it, to see if there was ever a soul inside this skin, or if I was just an echo of someone else's cruelty. Kansas. The word echoes inside me like a ghost I never met. I don't know how far I've walked, days, years, maybe entire afterlives, but eventually, I find it, half buried in prairie soil, swallowed by weeds, a hatch, rusted shut, like a secret the earth itself tried to forget. I pry it open and descend. The staircase groans beneath my weight, though I am a soul and not a body. A paradox, how the dead can still feel heavy. The walls are concrete, cracked, wet, scratched with numbers in childish scrawl. At the bottom, a corridor, flickering lights, smells of mold, metal, and forgotten nightmares. A sign reads, Project Hollow Echo, East Wing. I step forward. The rooms are still here. Glass cages, tiny beds, medical charts, handprints on walls made by hands far too small. There are drawings in crayon, a girl crying, a boy holding a scalpel, a man with no face. Each room was a memory factory where children were not raised, but written, engineered, not taught love, but shown pain, over and over, until the soul split open and bled out. I find a door marked Subject 0 Observation. It creaks open. Inside, a room like a playroom, soft carpet, dolls, blocks, a mirror on one wall, clearly two-way, and in the center, a videotape. I play it, grainy footage. A child sits cross-legged, maybe 4 or 5, expressionless. A psychologist's voice from the speaker. When someone takes your toy, what do you feel? The child does not answer. The voice repeats, do you feel angry? Sad? Still silence. Then, the child looks at the mirror, straight into the camera, and smiles. I fall back. That child was me. There is no doubt now. This was not just trauma, not just abuse. This was design, a blueprint of brutality, sketched in childhood. I was the prototype, Subject 0, the proof that you could sever love from a soul and still make it walk, talk, and kill. I find files in a drawer, one marked Deactivation Protocol, Subject 0. It outlines the final phase of the project. Once cognitive dissonance arises, initiate terminal loop. Ensure subject's psyche collapses before full emotional restoration. Translation: if I start remembering, destroy me from within. That's why I saw the white room. That's why the memories came in pieces. Not as healing, but as a fail-safe. To break me before I could wake up. It almost worked, but something survived inside me. Something even they didn't calculate. Not empathy, not guilt, but the need to know who I truly am, even if the answer is monstrous. I wandered deeper into the facility, more rooms, more names, subjects like me, some younger, some older, some marked unstable, others terminated. Then I find it, a nursery, untouched, dust-covered toys, a mobile still turning gently, though there's no air, and on the wall, scrawled in marker, we were never children, only blueprints. I kneel. Something inside me breaks. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way. No screams, no tears. Just a silence so sharp, it cuts through the illusion I once called identity. For the first time in my afterlife, I no longer want revenge. Not even answers. I want to bury this place. But I can't, because it's not just here. It's inside me, and maybe inside others. Walking the world right now, smiling, normal, broken. On the way out, I pass a file with a different name, not mine, Delilah. The folder says, Subject 07, Empathic counteragent. I open it. Photos, reports, brain scans. She was never random, never a coincidence. She was assigned to me, trained to trigger emotions in me that were otherwise extinct. A test to see if a monster could love. And I did. I did love her, or something close to it. That's why I killed her. Not out of hatred, but because love felt like poison. A thing I wasn't allowed to hold. And we were never real. Just part of the experiment. A dying simulation. I rise. The corridor behind me flickers, begins to collapse. The walls shiver. The ceiling cracks. The entire facility is crumbling. Maybe from time, maybe from truth, or maybe because I finally remembered, and the program is erasing itself. I climb back out into the daylight. Wind, dust, sky. But the light doesn't feel warm anymore. Nothing does. Not because I don't feel, but because now I feel everything. Too late. I am not just a killer. I am the graveyard of 1,000 failed experiments. A soul built in pieces, and now falling apart in silence. I walk toward the horizon, and behind me, the earth seals the hatch shut, as if it never existed. But I know better, because I existed, even if no one ever called me by name. The prairie is endless. I walk beneath a sky so pale it looks already dead. Every step feels like it's taking me nowhere, and deeper into myself. The hatch is gone now, buried, forgotten, as if the earth, too, was ashamed of what it hid. But something came back with me. Not a ghost, not a memory, a shadow. It walks beside me and looks like her, Delilah, but not as she was. This version doesn't speak. She mirrors my every step. When I turn, she turns. When I stop, she stares. Eyes like black wells. Empty, reflective, honest. Not the real Delilah, just my memory of her. Twisted by grief and guilt and whatever science was done to me. And still, I can't look away. We walk for what feels like days. No hunger, no thirst, no sun. Only the sound of wind and the hush of 1,000 forgotten truths. Eventually, we reach a place that should not exist. A house, white, wooden, familiar, too familiar. It's our house, the one Delilah and I lived in. Or thought we did. The simulation, the lie, still standing. I step inside. Dust falls like slow rain. The living room is exactly how I remember it. Photos on the wall, me and her, smiling, playing house with our dead hearts. She follows me in, takes her seat at the kitchen table, silent, still, waiting. And for a moment, I forget I'm dead. I sit across from her. "What do you want from me?" I ask. She blinks, then mouths the word. "You. Not love, not regret, not apology, just me. The pieces I left behind, the pieces that she held for me when I couldn't hold them myself. Because maybe she was never just a handler. Maybe she was the part of me that still believed that something good could grow in poison soil. I walk through the hallway. Every door is a memory. One creaks open to show the night I first confessed I didn't dream. Another shows me holding her hand, her smile like sunlight through glass. I open the final door, a mirror. Not just glass, but a living mirror, breathing. It ripples as I step near. And when I look in, I don't see myself. I see him, the boy from the tape, Subject 0, 5 years old, smiling. "Do you remember?" he asks. I nod. "I remember everything." He tilts his head. Sadness, confusion, something like pity. "You were supposed to forget." "I know." Silence. Then, "Why didn't you kill yourself, like the others?" The question hits me like ice. I don't have an answer. Not a real one. Only because I wanted to know if I was more than what they made me. The mirror boy blinks. His smile fades. And then, slowly, he steps out of the mirror. Not as a child, but as a man. As me. We stand face to face. A moment of perfect symmetry. Then, without warning, he lunges, not with fists, but with truth. He pours memories into me. Not just mine, but all of them. Every child broken in that lab. Every scream behind glass. Every failed test. I fall to my knees. The weight of the world, no, of many worlds, crushing my soul. He whispers, "You carry all of us now." Delilah stands behind me, silent, but her eyes are no longer empty. They're full of light and tears. She kneels, places a hand on my shoulder. For the first time in all these afterlives, I weep, not from pain, but from knowing that what was done to me is not who I am. It shaped me, but it is not my name. That night, I sit by the fireplace. It does not burn, only glows. Delilah beside me, the mirror boy gone, but his presence remains, like ashes in my blood. I ask her, "Do you forgive me?" She says nothing, only holds my hand. And somehow, I know that's enough. Mourning never comes, but something like peace does. A false peace, a fragile one, maybe, but it's the first thing I haven't had to steal. I close my eyes, and for the first time since death, I dream, not of murder, not of programs, not of white rooms or screaming children. I dream of a name, a real one, mine, almost, but before I can speak it aloud, I hear a knock at the front door, 3 soft taps, and then silence. Delilah turns to me, eyes wide, and I realize we're not alone anymore. 3 knocks, nothing else. No footsteps, no voice, not even breath beyond the wood, just silence. Delilah looks at me. Her hand in mine trembles, not in fear, but in recognition. "I know that knock," she whispers, "but I don't know who it belongs to." I rise. The house feels colder now. Walls seem farther apart, ceilings higher than they should be. I walk to the door. I don't want to open it, but something inside me already has. The latch clicks on its own. The door creaks outward, and what stands beyond it is nothing. No man, no shadow, just a hollow shape, a silhouette of absence, blacker than black. It has no face, but I feel its gaze. It looks at me the way the void looks at a falling star, with indifference and a slow, aching hunger. It speaks, without lips, without sound. Only the meaning arrives, like thoughts that weren't mine. "You have gathered too many truths. That is not permitted." I stare back, unsure if I'm shaking or dreaming again. "You were meant to be erased, not rebuilt." "Who are you?" I ask. It doesn't answer. It simply steps into the house, and with it, the light fades. The walls crumble like wet paper. Delilah vanishes into vapor. The air becomes thick, like breathing through wet cloth, and the house is no longer a house. It is a chamber, circular, metallic, cold, a return, the lab, not the real one, but a deeper version, the one inside me, the one I never left. I am strapped again, wires in my spine, needles in my throat. The void walks the perimeter. It watches as images flood the air around me. Not memories, possibilities, in one. I killed Delilah on the second date. In another, I report the lab to the press. In another still, I never enter the trial. I live, I paint, I die in peace. Hundreds of paths, all spinning. The void speaks. "None of these were chosen. You were manufactured, Not born, a container. But you tried to choose anyway. It moves closer. The air gets tighter. My skull aches. Choice is a virus in a created mind. I scream, I am a choice. My words split the air. Cracks form in the walls. The images flicker. And for the first time, the void recoils. You made me a cage, I whisper. But I filled it with fire, and I burn. From the inside out. Not with pain, but with memory. Every face, every scream. Every time I raised a knife and felt nothing. I feel it now. All of it. The void screams. Not with sound, but with collapse. It begins to fold into itself, pulled by some unseen gravity. I see shapes inside it. Familiar faces, children, me. Fragments of what I was meant to be. And then, Delilah. She's not afraid. She walks toward the void, not to fight it, but to take it back, to pull the pieces of me that never made it into the world. She turns to me, smiles. You never loved me, she says. Tears pour from my eyes. I know, but I did love the you that could have been. She steps into the void, and it changes color, from black to gray, then to white, then nothing. I awaken, lying on a floor made of mirrors. No roof, no walls, just sky above, cracked like porcelain. And in the glass beneath me, I see a man, not a killer, not a child, not even a ghost, just a man. He has my eyes, but not my name, because I still don't have one. But he speaks anyway. His voice is soft, familiar. You're almost ready, I ask. Ready for what? He smiles, and the cracks in the sky begin to heal. For judgment, I look around. There are doors now, 12 of them, each marked not with a number, but with a face I took. Behind each one, a life, a scream, a memory, a soul. To leave this place, I must walk through every single one and listen. 12 doors, 12 faces, all of them mine and not mine. Children, women, men, strangers, friends, even the dog, even the mirror. Every door pulses with a soft glow. The light is not inviting, it is expectant. I don't know how long I stand there. Seconds? Centuries? Then something inside me moves, or perhaps something outside me stops waiting. My legs begin to walk toward the first door. The face on it is small, a girl, maybe 6, pigtails, missing teeth, blue jelly on her cheek. I don't remember her, but the door remembers me. The first door, it swings open, the scent of syrup, warm sunlight. I'm in a kitchen, too clean, too still. Then a voice. You said you'd play hide and seek. I turn. She's there. The girl. She's not afraid. She's disappointed. You lied. I don't know what to say. I kneel. I don't remember who you are. She frowns. That's what all monsters say. I open my mouth to respond, but she blows bubbles from a plastic wand. They float in the air, each one a memory. Not mine, hers. A basement, dark. She's hiding. I'm counting, but I never come to find her. Instead, I bring fire. The scene distorts, becomes ash, and she vanishes with it. The door behind me closes. The second door, a man in his 40s, heavy jaw, cigarette lips. I step in, bar noise, old rock music, the stink of beer and betrayal. He's seated on a stool. He doesn't look up. You remember what you said to me? I shake my head. You said, you're the only one who ever understood me. He chuckles. It is not kind. Then you broke my jaw with a wrench. The bar flickers, becomes a workshop. Tools on the wall. I am there, but not me. The version of me they created. His friend, his killer, a test run. He holds up a photo of us. Two men in uniforms, smiling. We were in the same trial, weren't we? I ask. He nods. You adapted. I didn't. He points to a scar over his temple. They recycled me. His face begins to melt. Eyes slide down his cheeks. Mouth slurs. You killed me before the world did. The third door. A woman, mid-30s, soft eyes, wedding ring, a small apartment, dishes in the sink, jazz plays. I feel my breath catch. I loved her, or the version of me that did. I can feel it. She doesn't speak. She simply looks at me, and behind her, a child, blonde, sleepy. She reaches for her son, and he turns to ash in her arms. She screams, and I realize she wasn't my victim. She was my witness. She saw what I did to someone else. She testified. They erased her memory, but I came back, not to kill her, to erase her again, emotionally, psychologically. I broke her world without spilling a single drop of blood. I leave that room in silence, door by door. I pass through. A homeless man I stabbed because his cough annoyed me. A jogger who crossed my path too early in the morning. A priest I strangled in a church bathroom while the choir sang. A woman I followed from a bookstore. She smiled at me. That was her only crime. A taxi driver who didn't speak English fast enough. A teenager who tried to rob me. I beat him until he stopped breathing. Then I took his wallet and threw it in a drain. Each door becomes harder to walk through, because with each one, I remember more. Not just what I did, but who I could have been. How close I came to being someone else. A teacher, a poet, a father, a human being. But I chose nothing, because nothing was easier to wear. When I reach the 11th door, I hesitate. The face on it is Delilah, but older. Sadder. I open it. She is there. This is not the Delilah from the dream house. This is the real one, a version who survived. Her hair is gray. She walks with a cane. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment filled with plants and photos. Photos of me, of him. The version of me that was kind, before the experiments, before the first blade. She talks to me without seeing me, just sitting at the table, sipping tea. You could have painted the world with light, she says, but you chose shadows because they didn't talk back. She looks up, right into my eyes, even though I am a ghost. If you ever come back, I forgive you. And just like that, the door closes on its own. Only one door left, the 12th. It has no face. Only a mirror. I see myself, but not the version I know. Not the killer, not the child, not the soul. Just a man, tired, worn, carrying 12 lifetimes of regret. I step through, and there is nothing. No room, no victim, no memory. Just me. A voice rises. This is the final room. The one you feared the most. The one you filled with silence. I ask, what now? And the sky answers, now, you choose. A door forms behind me, one last exit, but etched on it is a name, my name, the one I was never given, the one they deleted. I reach toward it, and in that moment, I know who I am, not what I've done, not what they made me, but who I am despite it all. The door with my name, no number, no face, just the name, not the one they used in the lab, not the one the world forgot, the one I remember only now, whispered by a mother in the dark before I was taken away. Elias. I speak it aloud. The void listens, and something trembles. The door opens, but there is no room, only a cliff, wind howling, Stars frozen above a black ocean. There are no gods here. No judges, no punishers. Only me. And a voice familiar but unplaceable. A blend of every soul I've met. This is not heaven. This is not hell. This is the place before endings. I look down at my hands. They flicker between forms. The child, the killer, the man in the cell, the shadow in the hallway, the one who could have been, the one who chose not to be, and then stillness. Across the cliff stands a figure, not cloaked, not monstrous, not divine, just me, but whole, clean, unbroken. He doesn't move. He waits. For what? I take a step toward him, and a thought stabs my mind. If you walk into him, you will be born again. I freeze. Born again? With memory? With sin? The voice answers, you will forget. That is the gift. And the curse. I glance behind. The door is closing. If I don't choose, I will remain here. An echo. A fragment. Neither punished nor forgiven. Will I hurt again? I whisper. The wind responds. Yes, but you may also love. If you choose to carry the weight, I laugh. Not with joy, but with the brittle edge of someone who's seen too much. Why give me a choice now, I ask. Because the dead can only heal when they decide they want to be alive. I walk, step by step, toward the other me, the real me, the possible me. Each step burns. Memories flake away like old paint. The lab, the blade, the blood, the screams. One more step. Delilah's voice saying, I forgive you. One more step. The child whispering, you lied. One more. The mirror shattering. The names I never knew. The faces I erased. The me I abandoned. Then I merge, not with him, but into him. Light, then nothing. Somewhere, a child is born in a quiet hospital. No cries, just breath. The nurse says, he's so calm. The mother smiles, tired. His name is Elias. In the child's closed fist, a twitch, a memory, fleeting, gone. But in the distant corner of the room, a shadow watches for a moment longer, then disappears. Thanks for watching the whole video. Please give me a like and subscribe to the channel to watch more interesting stories.